Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Real Women, Real Purpose talk show live in the On Purpose Woman Global Community Facebook group. I'm Ginny Robertson, one of the hosts of the Real Women, Real Purpose talk show. I'm also the founder of the On Purpose Woman Global Community and the founder and publisher of On Purpose Woman online magazine. I'm here today with Dr. Amber Tichenor, and we'll be talking about freeing females from frenemies. Boy, that's a mouthful, isn't it? Thank you for being here, Amber. I am super excited about this topic.
Thank you for having me, Jenny. I'm excited to be here, not only to talk about it, but just knowing the work you're doing to empower women. I love it. So thank
I
you.
appreciate that. So for those of you who have not had the pleasure of knowing Amber, let me tell you more about her. Amber Tichenor is the founder of To Be Coaching and Consulting and author of Behind Frenemy Lines, Rising Above Female Rivalry, to be Unstoppable Together. That's an important subtitle there, which will be released by Morgan James Publishing in 2021. She has a PhD in IO psychology and is a thought leader in the topic of female rivalry. And as I said, I'm super excited about this topic because it's not one I've seen addressed much. But before we get started, you have a PhD in IO psychology. That's industrial and organizational psychology, correct?
It is correct.
So say a little bit about that. How's that different from just psychology?
Well, it's the psychology of the working environment. So I did a lot of work with organizational development, change management, leadership, a lot of change work, helping organizations transition from, A to B. So it's the mindset of an organization and the work I did and helping them facilitate change. But there are a lot of different facets of it for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is that where you started to sort of get interested in this idea of female rivalry?
It is.
It was there.
Yeah, so I was working as a consultant, and I was also at the same time going to school and doing my dissertation for my PhD, and I had to write a topic that impacted the working environment. So I knew I wanted to do something about women. I wanted to maybe do something about cultures. I wasn't sure how all that would fit in. And then it hadn't hit me directly, maybe in little bits and pieces. And I saw it. I saw this behavior that was in the working environment, and it was largely unignored. It was the elephant in the boardroom. And people would tiptoe around it, and good women walked, and negative behavior by good women leaving, and negative behaviors or the negative individual staying, the negative behavior was rewarded. And so that's what piqued my interest, because I was fascinated by it, why and how it could be so ugly and mean and disruptive to the organization, but also to, the individuals that were on the receiving end and those around it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I grew up in the corporate culture in the 70s and early 80s. I left and went to another type of work in the early 80s. But, I was kind of climbing the corporate ladder, and there were some of us who were doing that. And I remember I worked for a very large company, which will go unnamed. And
Yes.
they had their home office here, and then they were bought out by an even larger company. And that company came in, and they had much more of a socially responsible outlook. And they looked around and they said, not only do you not have any women or minorities in positions of authority, you're not doing anything to help them get there. So they instituted some programs.
Yeah.
And I was one of 10 women picked to go into this program to help us prepare for management and on. And all I remember from that is it was taught by a man because there were no women to teach us. And the whole feminine piece was just downplayed. And don't you ever do this and don't you ever do that? Don't wear a dress to work, blah, blah, blah. Don't nurture your employees. But what happened is we started infighting. We started competing with each other.
Sure.
And I don't know if this ever came out of my mouth, but I know I thought it, but I heard other women say, oh, I would never work for another woman. They're such bitches.
Yep. I've heard that a lot.
Yeah. And it would hit me, wow, I think we're talking about ourselves here, but yet I was not mature enough yet. I was,
Sure.
How old was I? In my early 30s to really know what I was doing. So let's go back just a minute. Define frenemy. I think everyone kind of has heard it, but what do you think it is?
Well, if you look at the formal definition, and actually there is one, it's a a mix of a friend and an enemy. So it's somebody that may be ever existing and but could flip on you. So it's a combination of the two. Chances are, though, if it truly is a frenemy, in my mind, after the research I've done, that's not a true friend.
Right. Somebody who's so pretending to your face to be your friend,
Yes.
maybe using you in a way.
Yes.
Okay.
Might be nice to you, but if you are all out and about or you get up and leave your seat at the table, you know you might be the topic of conversation while you are away.
That is so interesting. I remember hanging out with a group of women many years ago, and I really didn't want to do it anymore, but I knew that if I left, they would talk about me. Isn't that a great
Yeah.
reason to stay?
But I
Again,
hear that, Jenny, I hear
maturity.
that frequently. Like it's because we've always done that, or they're friends from college, or we have a history, and it's hard to break those patterns. And no one, I mean, even if you know you don't want to be in that company anymore, no one likes to know they're being talked about.
True.
Yeah.
You have to have I didn't have much of a sense of self yet, enough to know that I would be,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
You say that female rivalry is not just a cat fight, that it is a serious behavioral issue with emotional, psychological, social, and sometimes physical ramifications. And you want to highlight the importance of what it means and how it occurs and what it looks like. So let's talk about that. First, what does it mean?
So going back to when I first started researching this, I just did it in the work environment. As my research has expanded, I found it's not just in the working environment. It's often a behavior that women experience on a daily basis, socially, in the working environment, from family. So it is something that is, it has no, it's limitless. There's no boundaries. And so it can happen about anything or to anyone. And so that's what makes it, and often it, is very intangible and it's very passive aggressive and it's very hard to pinpoint what it is. And so you'll think, well, she just didn't say that to me. And you'll think, well, then you'll think, well, what did I do? I must have done something. So it's a combination of the things, and then it can escalate. But because it is so intangible, you don't really see it at the, when it's occurring.
Yeah.
Or in a way that you can readily address it or have a conscious thought about it, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. And also, I guess, because it hasn't been talked about very much, we don't have labels for it really. Like, what is it?
We don't have labels. And I think when I first started doing my research, the labels were the cat fight, or it's just women being dramatic, or there was a lot of pop culture or media about it, like, oh wow, let's look at the women duke it out, and it was a source of humor or fun. And then once I dove into it, and I've done hundreds and hundreds of interviews with women who have shared their stories with me, and it has true psychological, social impacts, sometimes physical, things that happen and continue to happen even after the situation has stopped, because it can impact them so deeply.
I imagine it brings up trust issues big time.
Huge trust issues. And it's interesting, a lot of women, initially when I'll start talking or they'll share their stories, it might initially come from a situation that happened at work. But then once we keep talking, then maybe they might relay something that happened in high school, or even as far back as grade school or college. And a lot of times it stems from trust, or it's like, wow, oh, I never realized that how I reacted to how she treated me. I don't really have any close female friends anymore. Or as you said earlier, I'll never work for another woman again, or I won't work on a team with all women. There has to be a token man, like it is trust, because especially if somebody has been your friend and they flip on you, it's very deceiving, and it makes you doubt yourself. You lose your voice. I think that's probably one of the biggest things that happen, is women who are experiencing it lose their voice when they're in that type of behavior situation.
and may not get it back. unless
It's
they-
hard to get it back. And so the women I interviewed, I had all these interviews and I thought, gosh, I know this in and out. I know it. I studied it. I've lived it. I wrote a dissertation on it. And then it happened to me. And
In the middle of all this?
after I'd gotten my dissertation, it happened to me
Wow.
at work, and it had probably gone on for 4 to 5 months. And I was on the phone call with, and I would dread going to work. I'd get a complete pit in my stomach. And I tried to put it back on me to this woman, like, what can I do to communicate better? How can I help improve this? And there were so many little nuances about what the behaviors were like. But my mom said, I hate to see you doubt yourself all because of how this woman treats you.
Mhm.
And I thought, oh my gosh, like I had this epiphany. I'm like, here I am. I've studied this. I know about it. And it happened to me and I couldn't have named it. So what is it doing to women who don't know anything about it? And I did lose my voice and I lost my joy. And so I immediately went in and I quit. And it was afterwards that I could reflect and then I could see it in hindsight. But when I was in it, I didn't see it.
Wow. I guess in hindsight, it was also a gift because, you had a greater depth of experience then.
I call it the best worst thing that happened to me because it made my research come full circle. I wouldn't have wanted to have that happen to anybody else either, or I wouldn't have wanted it for myself. But I'm glad I had it happen actually in hindsight, because now I can 100% say without a doubt, I know what it feels like.
Yes, yes. Do you think that sometimes when a woman is experiencing this from a frenemy,
Yes.
especially someone that she had really been a friend, can it sometimes feel like gaslighting to her? This whole idea of, that's gotten a lot of attention, I know, over the last few years.
Yeah.
And say a little bit about what gaslighting is, because I think every woman probably knows, but, watch
So
the
let me
movie
think.
if you don't know, right?
Yeah, let me think of some examples. Well, oh gosh, gaslighting would be, well, why do you always turn that around? Like you make it about you when I didn't say that, or, it's part of that passive aggressive intangible thing where it plants the seed for doubt within yourself.
Mhm.
And so I think there's a lot of aspects of gaslighting involved with this type of behavior. And often and that's coming from a friend, or even if it's in a work setting,
Mhm.
chances are if a woman has done this to you, she's probably done it to somebody else. But if she's really good too, she's not going to do it in front of other people. And so other people might sense or feel a little bit of angst or sense, some uncomfortableness, but they probably won't see that behavior as she's projecting it towards you.
And since you're the only one seeing it, then she's telling you things that make you start to doubt yourself. You think maybe you're just overreacting or making things
Exactly.
up or just need to buck
Yes. And
up.
then that
Yeah.
all goes back to the trust and doubting yourself and losing your voice. So it's kind of a cumulative effect of it.
Oh, and like you said, can have really long-reaching, long-term results.
Yes, it
Wow.
really can. I wouldn't say I've ever experienced PTSD, but I do know some of the women who have shared some truly harmful stories from the working environment. Not that I could name what that would be, but I wouldn't be surprised if they wouldn't fall in that realm, because if it escalates, it can turn into a full-blown bullying type of behavior. And especially in the working environment, when that's where your paycheck comes from, and you want to have a form of psychological safety in the working environment. And so it can become a big domino effect.
Yeah, not everyone may feel like they have the luxury of leaving a job at that moment. It's easier to leave well, it's not easier to leave a friendship, but at least there's not the economical ramifications.
Exactly. I was in a situation, and my husband said, most people don't quit until they have something else lined up. And like, it just overcame me. But I was in a fortunate situation. A lot of women are not in that. You know, that's your welfare, that's your livelihood of how you make money. So it's not just so easy to up and quit.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you said that this behavior is often considered entertainment and that those participating can be handsomely rewarded. And I think, the Real Housewives franchise comes to mind.
Yes.
Why do you think we as a society want to see women behaving like that toward each other? Because somebody
You
wants
know,
to see it or it wouldn't still be on television.
yeah, The Housewives is one. I think like The Bachelorette is another, you know,
Yeah.
that show. It's women tearing each other down. I think a lot when you're in it and it's projected towards an individual, the person projecting that behavior usually stems from a low self-esteem. And so to see somebody else fail or fall maybe makes you feel a little better about yourself. So I think it's the same way when you watch that sort of thing on TV or, you know, different shows. It might lift you up a little bit because you feel higher because of those negative behaviors in an odd way, if that makes sense. It's really, I mean, there's no rhyme or reason to it. It's truly not funny. But I even had somebody the other day mention to me, do you have any videos of these cat fights? And I just ignored it. Like, no, I'm not going there because that's exactly what I don't want to promote. Like, no, it's not funny.
Yeah, and they should even not be called cat fights.
Well,
Men
you
fight.
know,
Men don't have
yeah,
like
they
tiger
don't.
fights or any. I mean, men fight. Why can't
Yeah.
women fight when they fight, right?
So the term cat fight, and I don't even know if I will get this totally right, but when I was doing research for my book, it is a true cat fight is a true name, and it started, I want to say, the late 1800s with in women going against each other, and then in the 50s and 60s, it started to gain popularity with like the B-rated movies, and
Mm.
then from there it went to like Dynasty, or you know, where the women were totally have duking it out. And I'm sure if you were to go back to the ratings of that time, that upped the ratings for that show.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I forgot, I think it was Crystal Carrington threw
Yes.
Alexis into the pool, pushed her into the
Yeah.
pool or something. Yeah, I remember that.
It's like
Um,
shock and awe at the same
yeah,
time. Like,
because
oh no,
women
she
don't do that.
didn't. But yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess the catfight thing also goes back to this, we got our claws out, right?
Yes.
That's part of that.
The
Yeah.
being catty, you have your
Mhm.
claws out, and but that is the behavior. It's the one upping, or you know, to make yourself feel better or make somebody else look small.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've had this belief for some time that, when we're talking about any woman, when we're downplaying any woman or trashing any woman, we're really trashing every woman.
Yes.
Because if we want men to respect us,
Yes.
we have to respect each other. And it doesn't mean I have to like, I'm not saying it's not about holding hands and
No,
being
no,
kumbaya, but it's
I
about,
agree.
just not throwing them under the bus.
I agree. We're not, let's be honest, we're not always going to get along or like everybody, but you can have respect for other people. You can be kind to other people. Um, I agree. I think portraying the downfall of women as a whole then just lowers that group,
Yeah.
our group.
Yeah.
So the more we can empower and uplift and show that women can work together, we can flip that lens.
Which brings us to the flip here. You want to
Oh,
flip
the flip.
the whole perspective
Yes.
so that women can build a sisterhood of like-minded women who embrace collaboration over competition, which is not a new thought. I think we've been looking at the possibilities for some time now and
Yeah.
edging towards it, but there's still a lot of work to be done. So how do we make that happen? How do we work towards that in a greater way?
There is a lot of work to be done, and it isn't a new concept. But you know, I look back at where I've been in groups that haven't endorsed that to ones that have, and it's so huge the difference of what that makes to you as an individual and the group as a whole. I think one of the key things is first to look inward about yourself and do some self-reflection, like, and that's twofold. It's what behaviors may you be projecting towards other women, whether you're consciously aware of them or not. And the second thing is just your own self-empowerment and liking yourself. Because if you see, it's rare that you see women that who love other women, they don't also love themselves, and it shows because there's that confidence and there's that joy. And I think that's that individual, self aspect of it, just as a starting point.
Mm-hmm. When I started this organization, the On Purpose Women Global Community, it actually came out of a party I had at my house. I didn't know I was starting an organization. I had left my corporate job, had been working for a seminar company. They left the area. I had this stint with a thing called the Whole Life Expo, which is this gigantic holistic expo at the Baltimore Convention Center, this 3-day event with all the top names. And I was the area director for that and helped on that event. And I met some of the best women. And I decided I was going to throw a party. I called it a girlfriend party. It was in 1999. The internet, I really didn't have that much to do with it yet. So I sent out handwritten invitations, invited women, show up at my house on Saturday, bring food and a friend. And 65 women came to that first event.
The first event, wow.
In my family.
Were you shocked?
I was shocked. And something different was happening there. As I said, I'd grown up in the corporate culture. I didn't have a lot of trust for women. I sometimes say we were set up. We were set up to compete in a really unhealthy way. And in my personal situation, I'd never played sports. We didn't have sports teams for girls when I was in high school. So I don't think we ever learned how to lose to each other in a healthy way. Guys can lose a game, they go out and have a beer after.
For sure.
You're competing for men and shoes and jobs, and it just wasn't pretty sometimes.
No, I bet. And even with, you coined a key thing in some of the research I've done is the ways in which men and women deal with aggression. Men are pretty much more direct with it, and they can belt it out in the boardroom, but then in an hour be on the golf course having a beer. With women, it's that intangible, and then it can be about nothing is off limits. So it could be about anything.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Internalize it all.
Exactly. And it doesn't end. It's still festering in the back of your mind, even though it might have happened, 3 weeks ago.
And making up stories about it, what it meant.
Oh yeah, it grows and grows. But you brought up a good point with how you were telling me earlier about the training for your work and being set up for failure. It does seem like they weren't hitting on the points that were there to make you all successful.
That was the time, and and I don't know if you may have read about this. You're probably not old enough to have experienced it, but that's when we started dressing like men, and we were told no open-toe shoes, no dangly earrings. And the one thing I remember the most about the training, this one day, this guy trainer said to us, and he said it just like this: "Don't you dare nurture your employees. You're not their mother." And he said nurture and mother like it was a really dirty word.
Yeah.
So we were all kind of masculinized really to and I think that we were doing it superficially, but didn't have the tools yet.
Sure.
And so, but we were still women, and that's why all this stuff started, because we didn't know how to handle this. Well, you're my friend, but yet we're competing for this job, and now, and I heard you said that about me, and how did I get that job? And all kinds of rumors would start about women, about how they got promoted. It was just a mess. But there was nobody there kind of trying to straighten it out,
Well, and think about how that makes you feel then. Yeah, if you were friends with some of these women and then suddenly you're being pivoted against each other, like that you probably there were trust issues, I'm sure, that came out of that. Yeah.
And sometimes you would get promoted and become their boss,
Oh Lord, that never works.
So back to my family room, it was very different from what I had experienced. And I noticed that women were connecting and talking about things that seemed to matter to them.
Yeah.
Not everything was great, because some women had a really hard time expressing who they are and all of that. But I just said,
Yeah.
there's something going on here and I want more of it. And so
Yeah.
here we are 21 years later, actually 22 years from that date.
But that's
So it-
wonderful. And
yeah.
to have that many show up for the first
Yeah.
meeting, goodness.
I think that we as women, and I don't know if you found any research on this, that we as women especially crave connection.
I have found this is a key part of a good chunk of my book. Women need each other, and there is scientific aspects that prove that. The hormone oxytocin, when women are together, it flourishes. There's much, I'm making light of a much deeper conversation, but when women are together, the brain produces more oxytocin, and that is the chemical, that the love chemical. So it's for friendships, it's for, that support system of women. And if you look back, I think in hunter-gatherer days, women bonded with each other and they shared the raising of children and, gathering, and the men were out hunting. And then I think it was Brene Brown that has a story in one of her books or on her podcast or something about women who would all go down in a remote village, and they would go wash their clothes by the river every day. And fast forward a year or so later, and they all got brand new washing machines. And all their clothes were great and clean, but there was a sense of depression that kind of settled over the women. And it's because they weren't having that social time anymore.
Mhm.
Although they were more efficient in getting their clothes clean, that was part of their social and bonding time as well with the other women, and that's what was lacking.
That may have something to do with why so many women, at least in my experience growing up, there were so many women in the 50s and 60s who suffered from depression, yet it was treated with tranquilizers.
Sure.
Not with talk therapy or anything like that. They were just
Yeah.
unfulfilled, and they didn't have those connections because they were home with their appliances.
Yep.
That's when all the time-saving things started to be invented and put into households.
Yeah.
I never thought about that before. That makes a great, I think it makes a great
It
point.
does. When she put, wherever I read it, or anyhow, I'm like, that's fascinating, but it makes such complete sense. Like, if that is your time. And I think now women, we're busy. We have our own households. We are, and now everybody is, we're social distancing. So it's hard to not be around women like we have been.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Bless Zoom, huh?
Thank goodness for Zoom, because
Not the same thing, but it's better than nothing, I think.
Oh my goodness, yes, I'll take it.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about your book, because you wrote the dissertation, and then did the
Yeah.
book come out of that? You said, I've got too much else to say here. So
Part of it, so after my dissertation, I kept collecting stories and interviews. And women would tell their friends, and they told their friends, and I had tons of women that I think they wanted to talk. I wanted to listen because of what I was gathering research on, but I think it's been cathartic for the women to share with me too, because I get it, and some people often don't. So I had all these stories, and I thought, I need to do something with them. And then, having the own experience happen to me in the working environment, I thought, there's more to it than this. Like, I really am passionate about letting people know what it truly means and what it feels like when you experience it. And so that's how it kind of unfolded. So there is some of my dissertation in it, but I wanted it to be grounded in some scholarly info, but I want it to be not just scholarly. I want it to be for everyday reading. And so that's how it all came about. So there are lots of stories. Yeah, there's a lot of stories, and in it, there are 11 chapters, and each chapter has probably 5 to 7 interactive questions. So as you go through, you can use it like a workbook to just,
nice.
Yeah, like, oh, wow, have I experienced that? Or if I've had a similar situation, how did that make me feel? So, yeah.
And when will it be out?
This is $1 million question. No, right now it is with the, it's in the final editing stage. So as soon as that is complete, I will turn it over to James Morgan Publishing, and it's usually a 10-month process. They said just to receive the, have the hard copy. So I envision next summer it will come out. So an electronic copy could come out prior to then. Once they have the manuscript in hand, I'll start to get more clarity on the details.
Well, that's exciting, isn't it?
I kind of have to pinch myself sometimes that it's real, but yes, it is exciting. I'm like, yes, woo. Now I'm like, okay, what can the next one be?
As I said when we were chatting earlier, I just haven't seen anyone writing about this topic.
There are a few books out there. Some are older, a little more dated, and some talk about it, but the ones I've read don't also give tips on how to change the behavior or what to do. So I do offer that in it, like what to, how you can fix this situation, or if you can't fix it, what you do when you leave, or how to know, so it's a combination of how to change the behavior. And you can't ever change anybody else's behavior. You can only change yours, but you can walk away.
Yeah. And I don't want you to give away everything in your book.
Yeah.
But walking away, I mean, what would be the first thing that, or how would a woman even know that that's what she's experiencing? I mean, is there?
I think sometimes, but I also think, like when I was, if it's at work, if you're in it, it's hard to see it sometimes when you're knee deep in it. From a social perspective, I think you'd mentioned the point where you were meeting with these friends and it's just because you'd always done that. I'm finding I have a ton of great friends. I kind of look at my circle, my friendships in circles. And sometimes my closest circle might ebb and flow a little bit. And sometimes as I get older, it might even be shrinking. But I know without a doubt that those women that are in my core circle have my back undoubtedly. And so the walking away, it's also entails doing some soul searching. Like, relationships change. Just because you were friends with somebody from college, maybe you've outgrown each other. Or I have a lot of wonderful women that I met when my children were really small, and we were thrown together by circumstance. I still love them. I think they're wonderful, but we've gone our different ways right now. So there's an ebb and flow. But if you feel you're being talked about when you are getting up from the table, if I'm a big proponent of listening to your gut, like if that whisper, if something doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. So it's doing some soul searching to know what it is for you. For everyone, it's going to be a little bit different.
And something I just thought of, I'm wondering at what age should maybe a mother talk with her daughters about this, because they're experiencing this at younger and younger ages.
Oh my gosh. Right? So my daughter is in middle school right now. And I was shocked that when I started seeing it happen as early as kindergarten, on the playground. And so I just constantly were talking about how you feel, what you have control over. You don't have control over anybody's actions, but you do have control how you respond to something. And so, it's just, we keep in with her. And I know some of her friends and their moms, that's just kind of an ongoing conversation. So it starts so young. And I think if it's not addressed, it can be the start of, negative behaviors. But also they're looking up to you as a mother, or if you don't have children, like aunts or family members or whatever, but how you model yourself, they are watching too.
Yeah. And what you allow to happen.
Exactly.
How you allow yourself to be treated, I guess.
And how you allow yourself to be treated, if you stand up for yourself, and if in the manner of what you do, doesn't have to be nasty and mean, but you don't also have to be walked on.
Great point. Thank you for that. Do you have any final words of wisdom for women who want to be part of the solution?
I think looking inward to see how you are acting and behaving towards other women, how you are acting and behaving towards yourself as a key starter. I think if a lot of women have said, well, I don't have friends, or I don't know how to have that. There are lots in my community, there are lots of female groups. And I think sometimes it's just joining to see if there is a fit. And it's not always going to be a fit. And so you kind of may have to look at it as dating a little bit, but you will find a fit, but you also have to be persistent about it, you know, and it's okay to have a few different circles, but I think if you, to be a part of the solution, joining these communities like your community, and where you can uplift and empower, and once you are involved in a group like that, it rubs off on you. It's kind of hard not to, because it's infectious. And I think that's the joy of finding like-minded women that are great to be around.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I also want to mention that you have an article in this issue of On Purpose Woman magazine, and it is called, let's see, well, it's an article on female rivalry, talking about some of the things, but you go into more detail about some things in that article. And you're going to be doing a series of articles in the next few issues. So I want to tell everybody to go to onpurposewomanmagazine.com and check out this issue, and then the next few issues. Amber will also have something there about this whole, because my goodness, it could probably be a 10-volume book. I mean, there's just
oh
so
Lord,
yes. About it, right? I think it'll ever be like a college course or anything.
You know, I have a proposal out. I haven't. It would be awesome to be in a college course. I have a proposal with a group for having it in the working environment as part of like the onboarding or new hire process, or just something that would be part of that bullying, just to know what to look for. But I think it should just be a conversation that is teaching everybody to play nicely in the sandbox, you know, and respecting each other. And so, you know, we learn that in kindergarten, but along the way, we kind of forget about those things, especially if you're not seeing it. So, yeah, there's a lot.
Or beat out of us. I don't know which, but you know.
Exactly.
We do other things to survive out there, don't we? So
yes.
Wow, I've enjoyed this conversation so much. Thank you for your expertise and sharing it with all of us. And for, I think it took some courage to go off on this kind of on a limb a bit. You know,
thank you.
You remind me a bit of Brene Brown when you talk about, you know, I mean, when you were talking earlier, I didn't know if you had read her work, but
I love her work.
Her TED talk, her first TED talk took her down.
Yeah.
You know, and so you're experiencing frenemies at work, then really kind of probably took you down for a bit, and you rose above that, and then became better at what you're doing because of it. So, you know, how can someone research vulnerability if it's never been attacked, right?
It's true. And thinking I knew what, like I said, the best worst thing, but I now know without a doubt what it feels like. I know that women lose their voice. When I've talked about this I've talked to women groups, I've talked to mom-daughter groups. I'll usually do some sort of an exercise. Have you experienced this? Raise your hand, or this. And usually the whole audience is standing by the time, because it's rare that somebody hasn't experienced even a little bit, you know. But I think one of the nicest things that somebody said to me afterwards, she came up and she said, "It's so nice to know that I'm not alone." And I'm like, you're not, but that validated what I'm doing. But I think if this is more of an open conversation, more women will realize how prevalent this behavior is, and no, they're not alone. And that's why working together to flip the behavior can accomplish so much.
Yeah. And I just want to end by saying, I think that a woman who is listening to you speak, knowing your expertise, knowing that you're writing about this, probably has made some very positive judgments about you already and how far above her you are. You know, we sit and make up stories about people. And then when you talk about, I've experienced this too.
Yeah.
She goes, wow, then maybe it wasn't me.
Yes.
You know, so it's some ways people put you up on a bit of a pedestal because of the work that you're doing. And, you know, a pedestal isn't a great place to be sometimes. So
It can be lonely, but
yeah, you
no,
can,
I've been down there in the weeds too, let
yeah,
me tell you.
yeah. I think they can start to feel validated by that,
Yeah,
really. So
yeah.
thank you, thank you, thank you.
Well, thank you, Jenny.
You're welcome. And I want to
Yeah.
thank all of you who are watching this and joining us for the Real Women, Real Purpose talk show live in the On Purpose Woman Global Community Facebook group. And for a list of our topics, you can go to the onpurposewomanmagazine.com. We only have one more coming up this year. We have one next week where my co-host, Catherine Yarborough, and I are going to have a conversation. It will not be an interview. We're going to have a conversation, and it's going to be two white women talking about white privilege. We're not going to talk about it ahead of time. We're just going to talk about it, and because who else to talk about it, right? Other than white
Yeah.
women who've experienced it. So I'm
Yeah.
really looking forward to that because I think that's another topic that that has been coming out of the weeds a bit and
For
needs to be
sure.
talked about even more. So I'm excited about that. If you love this interview and you want to share it with your friends, you can find it on our YouTube channel in a couple of days, and that's the On Purpose Woman Global Community. So go to YouTube, put that in the search, and it will pop up. And there's at least 30 or more interviews there already that will inspire you, educate you, entertain you, help you grow a business, help you be a better self. Lots of stuff there to look at. So check that out. And you can find out about, again, about all of those on onpurposewomanmagazine.com. And while you're over there, be sure and check out Amber's article. Thank you again for watching. See you again.